Mark, are there any questions?
Yeah, I'm struggling here. I'm sorry. Hold on. Yeah, there are. Somebody would like to know access from Connecticut. You were talking about people coming from Connecticut to go to work, I guess there. Maybe half the workers, is that correct?
That's our understanding of it. There's a private dock in Old Saybrook where the ferry picks up about half the workers who go to Plum Island and delivers them right to Plum Island, as far as we know. They don't stop in Orient Point first, as far as we know.
Okay. I have a question from Victoria. It says, can Connecticut also partner with New York to gain control of Plum Island?
Well, Plum Island is in the town of Southold. That's a good question. You know, if I don't know of land areas that are co-owned by states, because the states have a certain amount of sovereignty. So no one's asked that before. We know that there's broad support in Connecticut for protection of Long Island Sound resources in general. Long Island Sound is the coastline for Connecticut. So whereas New York has coastline all over the place, including the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence Seaway and the Atlantic Ocean and the Hudson River, as well as Long Island Sound, that is Connecticut's coast. So Connecticut has a great deal of interest in protecting the natural resources of the Sound, and there has been a lot of interest in Plum Island. And we've spoken to Connecticut state government, particularly with regard to coastal zone management. And where they would come in is, we think that New York and Connecticut both can object on the basis of the Coastal Zone Management Act, can object to a sale of Plum Island by the federal government into private hands. And this is something we've had many discussions with the Department of State in New York, and some discussions with the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection in Connecticut, where their coastal management program exists. So in a broad sense, the answer is yes, but I don't know about control per se, but perhaps we would like their input on management. Another thing I didn't mention yet, which I just reminded myself of, and you did too, is that we heard from many of us stakeholders, and we're now considering the formation of a Friends of Plum Island group. And we think that they, with some funds, could help New York protect Plum Island with security and management planning, and perhaps even in the future help fund programs and activities at Plum Island. And this might sweeten the pot for New York in taking on an island like Plum Island and managing it. It would be quite an undertaking, and we know it's a big ask. So we think that some public-private partnership is called for. Perhaps Connecticut can also be involved that way. So thanks for asking the question. We get lots of questions, and it leads to lots of interesting ideas.
I'm taking that just a step further. Sorry, they're coming in fast here. Victoria asked, what about land trusts, like Peconic Land Trust? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, it could be another aspect of public-private partnerships. We heard pretty loud and clear from the region that people would like to see this publicly owned. We're not counting out conservation easements and the abilities of land trusts, whether it's a Peconic Land Trust, Nature Conservancy, Open Space Institute, Trust for Public Land, or another to help with the conservation of Plum Island. And that may be something that I don't want to call it a fallback position per se, but it's certainly in the quiver, you know, in our quiver of possibilities. But we heard loud and clear that from people, they'd like to see this publicly owned so that there will be public access. And then you have that Plum Island Research District to consider. It's integral, not just geographically to the island, but to the future operations of the island. Anytime you have a piece of land that you have to access by water, you have a very expensive undertaking. We do think the research district needs to be hosting an ongoing, well-funded enterprise that can help with those resources. So to answer the question, again, it's not out of the question to have land trusts involved. It's certainly among the options, and it might be trickier to figure out how to involve them in the research district.
I'm going to combine a couple of questions here. Would the island, if acquired by New York State, become a part of the New York State park system? And overall, what's the time frame for New York owning the island and then putting the plan into place?
Well, those are both very good questions. Thank you. We have interest from New York. It's not stated in writing that they have adopted our plan, but what they did do in 2016 is list Plum Island in the New York State Open Space Conservation Plan as an island to be acquired should the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service not turn it into a federal wildlife refuge. Right now, it appears that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service does not want to turn it into a refuge. So you might say, you can say, it's in the policy of the state of New York to acquire it. But when and how, that's still ahead of us. The lab will be leaving by 2023. The new National Agro and Biodefense Facility in Manhattan, Kansas is built, and they're already equipping it and getting the lab set up. They have their own, they meaning the Department of Homeland Security already has cleanup underway and a program for decommissioning the lab on Plum Island. So all those things are rolling forward. We would love to see Plum Island Preserve created by 2023. I think it would be great to be a park or a park preserve. So it would be appropriate for New York State to become part of New York State's park system. But we also think that it would be appropriate for the New York State DEC to help in co-management of the island because of the sensitivity of the resources there and the expertise that would be needed to carefully steward Plum Island. So we're hoping, and to make it happen, we need pressure, and we need pressure on the governor that in spite of the emergencies that we are living under right now with the pandemic, the severe economic stresses on the state, that people still care about Plum Island. We need to keep letting him know that. No matter how high up you go in New York State government, you are not going to make a decision like this without the governor's say so. So it's Governor Cuomo you'll want to be talking to if you like our vision for Plum Island.
We've got a couple of, I'm going to go from small to large in scope. We've got questions about what's the best way to help if you live in Orient, and I know you talked about a public-private partnership and Friends of Plum Island. The next step up from that is what can we do at the state level? And another question came in, what can we do to push Washington or Congress to change the language, or are we waiting, or how does that work from small to large?
all important questions that we're considering every day. If you are itchy and want to do something as soon as this meeting is over, you can go to preserveplumisland.org and click a button and send a letter that's already written or revise the letter that's there to your representatives in Congress. And you'll also find one to contact Governor Cuomo. If you know people who are close to our governor, feel free to try to influence them and have them try to influence our governor. I have postcards that you can send directly to the governor, if you like, to keep the pressure on. We just had a steering committee meeting on Tuesday. We meet once a month, and we have since about 2011. This is a great group of organizations, about 11 of them or so, that meet every month and talk about our strategies. We think that we need to keep the pressure on both Congress and the governor, but we also don't want to appear to be tone deaf, as though we're unaware of what else is going on in the world right now. We know that the press attention is easily diverted right now to politics. So stay tuned on whether we're going to make any big changes in strategy this fall. But at the very least, we're going to be planning the strategy. And at the very least, you can do something yourself right now. We are also planning on beginning the planning stages for a friends group. And that's another ongoing thing this fall. So if you are a person who can identify people who would want to be donors to something like that, that's another way you can help. We always can accept donations at Save the Sound. And if you want it to go directly to the Plum Island effort, just make sure in the notation section of your check that you write Plum Island, and it will go into that account. You would make the check out to Save the Sound. So I hope I've given you a variety of options, and you always can contact me as well, lharrison@savethesound.org, and I'd love to chat with you at greater length about your ideas.
All right, so there are more questions. If you'd like to take them, or if people want to drop out, that's fine. They can also catch up with the video that we post. I'll try to get that up on our YouTube channel for NFEC by the end of Sunday. And you can watch the whole thing again, because I know I missed a couple of things, like changing slides on time. But I'd like to have that offered to everyone who's been here today, and to the people who signed up and couldn't make it. And we're also going to make it available to our own constituencies and yourself too. I'd like to offer that link for your people to point to this talk as well. There's an awful lot of information in there, Louise. Thank you so much. But
I'm happy to answer more questions if people have them, and if
there are.
Hold on,
hanging
I'm
out
happy
here.
to.
Okay. There were some questions about how the law was created for this property, I guess, historically to begin with. What were the underlying political issues? What are the political issues going forward? We've had support from Zeldin, and if we change our representative in Congress, how does that change for us?
Okay, so going back to how did this all begin, the state of Kansas was looking for some economic development, and senators there decided that creating a new national agro and biodefense facility would be helpful to them, and to establish it at Kansas State University. This did not come out of Kansas by itself, but came at a time when the Department of Homeland Security was considering placement of an updated facility. Those of you who've been on the North Fork for over a decade will remember that there was a time in the early 2000s when the Department of Homeland Security was thinking of upgrading the laboratory on Plum Island to what they call a level 4 facility, biosafety level 4. And what that is a highly guarded facility that studies diseases that jump from animals to humans. We've seen exactly how important that kind of research is with the coronavirus. There was opposition to having it at Plum Island, and yet the need for such a facility existed, and so it was being shopped around, and Kansas decided they would like to have that developed in their state. Now, there are questions about the logic behind putting that kind of a laboratory in Tornado Alley, putting that kind of a laboratory in cattle country, and studying foot and mouth disease there. But that was not a decision we had any say in. Kansas wanted it, and they somehow got it. It was put in, it was just a couple of sentences in this 2008 omnibus legislation that was put together, this consolidated funding bill with the last recession. So you recall the stimulus bill in 2008, 2009, that was in there. And I guess New York and Connecticut didn't see every line, or didn't understand the ramifications of it, but it came to pass, and that legislation's still on the books. So that's how that happened. And Kansas has gone ahead and is starting to build, has built the National Agro and Biodefense Facility at the State University, funded already by the federal government. Now, local politics, I think, was the next question, or federal elections. We don't know anybody outside of New York or Connecticut. No, we don't know anybody in New York or Connecticut who doesn't want to save Plum Island. We just don't. Perhaps senators from Kansas or Wisconsin might see it differently. Senators out west sometimes think that federal government shouldn't own any land, and they'd like to see it taken over by the states. Okay, we'll take it. But people in New York and Connecticut all want to save Plum Island. So I think that anybody who becomes elected to office in this region is going to be in favor of saving Plum Island. It's what the citizens want.
Mm-hmm. Is it a possibility, another question, is it a possibility that a private citizen could step up and buy this, even at this stage?
So that's a good question, because I neglected to mention that there is a lawsuit underway that has stopped the environmental review process, which needs to be completed before a sale. So as you know, in New York, we have what's called SECRA, the State Environmental Quality Review Act. That's founded on the earlier law at the federal level called NEPA, the National Environmental Protection Act. The sale of Plum Island is subject to NEPA, and a draft environmental impact statement was prepared by the Department of Homeland Security and the General Services Administration, which is the realty arm of the federal government. And environmental groups everywhere reviewed it and realized it was wholly deficient. And we sued. So there was a lawsuit by Save the Sound, Peconic Baykeeper, Group for the East End, and 3 citizens. And that has many aspects to it that unless you're interested, I won't give you all the details, but we're now at a stay. So the lawsuit is in effect. It's put a hold on the completion of the environmental review process, and that process has to be completed before a sale can take place. So legally, the land cannot be transferred to anybody until the environmental review process has been completed. Also, we have this legislation from last December, which puts a temporary hold on marketing of the island. Again, that will expire at the end of September. So in the long run, there is a possibility that this federal land could be transferred to a private buyer, but not before a number of other things take place. And that's why we're working so hard to prevent that from happening. They would have to get through the environmental review process. They would have to get past New York State's Coastal Zone Management Act. And in the interim, we hope to repeal that original language. So, you know, who knows what will happen with this upcoming election? It could change the landscape.
All right. We've got a lot of compliments here. I'm sure you don't want any of those, so I won't tell you that it was informative, interesting, and valuable.
Thank you. I'm glad it was.
Yeah, we'll be glad to post this too, Louise. This becomes part of the archive. You know, our knowledge base is really what it is, so that we can bring people up to speed before we go to the next stage in either development or in the legislative process. So thank you very much on behalf of both NFEC and Audubon Society, and keep up the great work.
Thank you. Join us. Go to preserveplumisland.org. Figure out how you can be part of the process and eat your dinner.
I'd just like to mention that, or reinforce the request to participate in the hearing regarding the M3 zoned, or the potential for changing the zone to Marine 3 district in Orient Point. That's coming up on September 8th, Louise, correct? At 4:30?
Yes. What's the question, Debbie?
Well, what I'd like to do is just encourage people to participate in that. You know, you joined the Zoom meeting today. It's a very similar process. Mark and I both spoke at the very important comprehensive Southwold Town Comprehensive Plan meeting. Louise did two last night the same way. Endorsing and encouraging the town board to adopt the recommendations in the Southwold Town Comprehensive Plan. But my point is that it's a very easy process. Please don't feel intimidated by it.
Right. That's true.
And it really is just a matter of coming out and showing your support. Even if you just say one or two sentences that you support the change of zone, that would be great.
I agree. And you're right, Debbie. All you'd have to do is say, you know, I'm a resident and I support this, and sit down. That's plenty. If you wanted to say more, I would suggest that you go online to preserveplumisland.org/envision-report and look at the brochure, the one that's mostly pictures, and look at some of the text accompanying the pictures, and see if one of the suggestions there, the suggestions being part of our vision, appeals to you in particular. If you find it resonates with you in particular, be aware that it probably can't come true if we lose the ferry parcel. The ferry parcel really is the crux. So whatever it is you like about preserving Plum Island is going to depend on the ferry parcel. So you could pick out something from the brochure that you like and say, you know, you support this part of the vision, and therefore please put this zoning on the ferry parcel. And that would be perfectly legitimate too, if you wanted to say something more than simply I support it. But I hope you'll turn out, and I hope we'll see you online on September 8th.
And I'd just like to say one more thing in addition to saying thank you so much, Louise. You did a wonderful job. And I know that this effort has been a labor of love for you and has really been all-consuming, but you've done a fabulous job with all of this. So thank you very, very much. Also, I'd like to mention we have North Fork Audubon has a native plant sale, our fall native plant sale coming up the weekend of September 12th and 13th. We are doing that solely by pre-ordering. So if you wanted to go online, check out our website. You can definitely access information on the North Fork Audubon Fall Native Plant Sale. It's very popular. Fall is a great time to get those plants into the ground. They will flourish and thrive, even though you may not see it on the surface or above the surface. They're doing very well, establishing a good rooting system in the colder months. So we encourage you to check that out. So I think,
Debbie,
oh, and one other.
Yeah, I have something. I should have said this. You know, I didn't point out to all of you that North Fork Environmental Council and North Fork Audubon Society are members of the Preserve Plum Island Coalition, and your representatives from both organizations have participated in the Envision Plum Island process. When you go to the report, not the brochure so much, but if you go into the bigger report, you turn the first few pages, which by the way, they flip online, so you could just like flip the pages, sort of fun. You'll see 3 pages in small print of all of the people who participated in Envision Plum Island. And you may see your own names there. I just saw Bill White's name come up on the chat. Of course, he's a former Plum Island employee himself, a veterinarian, and with North Fork Audubon. Mark, you participated in one of the workshops.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and we heard you loud and clear and tried to follow up on your suggestions. Debbie, I know, you know, North Fork Audubon and North Fork Environmental Council both have been participating all along, and I know you were involved in the early days with Plum Island concerns, and you know, you go way back with your concerns about Plum Island. So this is as nationally significant as Plum Island is, it is also very local. And I appreciate all of you who've been participating, listening in tonight. You've been listening to some very lengthy, complicated things, and you've got a lot of patience. I appreciate it.
We made them understandable, Louise. Thank you so much.
Thank you.